America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Midnight Manifest. I'm your host, Mark, and it is the Midnight Hour. George Soros' son and I guess, replacement for George Soros. I guess he's retiring as the evil emperor, and he's going to use his son Alex to take his place. Posted on Twitter after the conviction of Donald Trump. Let me read it to you. Democrats should refer to Trump as a convicted felon at every opportunity. Note that. Every opportunity. Listen to this part. Repetition is the key to a successful message. And we want people to wrestle with the notion of hiring a convicted felon for the most important job in the country. So he's telling you, or he's telling basically the left, especially the ones in the media, no matter what, constantly keep referring to Trump as a convicted felon. Repetition is what's key here. And this is what the left does all the time. This is what the media does all the time. This is Project Mockingbird. They take their talking points and they just keep drilling them into people's heads until it's basically their own thoughts. I've got a montage here. I got this clip from Don't Walk Run Productions. Check them out on YouTube. I don't know if they put this together, but I got this clip from them of the media basically following orders. Here's what that looks like.
Donald Trump, the twice impeached former president and current Republican nominee, is now running as a convicted felon.
2 words, convicted felon.
Convicted felon. He is a convicted felon.
Donald Trump guilty as a felon.
Convicted felon.
The 45th president of the United States is now basically convicted felon.
Donald Trump, twice impeached, convicted felon.
Technically, he is a convicted felon. Legally speaking, a convicted felon.
Donald Trump will now campaign for president in this country as a convicted felon. Convicted felon, former president of the United States, like any other convicted felon. A convicted felon, convicted felon.
The former leader of the free world, Donald Trump, now a convicted felon.
The former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, a convicted felon.
He is now tonight a convicted felon.
And he's a felon now.
Donald Trump is a convicted criminal.
He is a convicted felon.
Convicted felon.
He's a convicted felon.
Donald Trump is a convicted felon. And now a convicted felon. Donald Trump is now a convicted felon.
Do we want to be represented, to be led for the first time in history by a convicted felon?
A former president of the United States, now a convicted felon.
And he became a convicted criminal.
You don't want a convicted felon in the Oval Office. You don't want a convicted felon in the Oval Office. You don't want a convicted felon to turn the Oval Office and the federal government into some kind of a racketeering operation.
We do know that a convicted felon can become president of the United States.
And he's now been convicted. He's a convicted felon.
A convicted felon.
Look, the fact is that being a felon is not good.
A president or an ex-president become a convicted felon. That's nothing for anybody to have a lot of joy about.
Donald Trump has been found guilty. What does this moment mean?
Could you say it again slower for me, please? It would be lovely.
Guilty.
Yeah.
All 34.
Could you say it again slower for me, please? It would be lovely.
Need permission from George Soros to say these things, or instructions from George Soros or Alex Soros, and what to do. They get paid millions and millions of dollars to stand in front of a camera and recite left-wing talking points. That's their job. They don't need anybody. They don't. There's not some. In some cases there are, but in this case, they already knew to refer to Trump as a convicted felon as many times as humanly possible. You see in that video clip, some of them take great glee in referring to him as a convicted felon. But that's how this works. That's how Project Mockingbird works. They just keep repeating these talking points over and over again until they drill it into the sheeple's heads, so that when they're on social media, or they're at the water cooler at work, or they're at family gatherings, if this conversation comes up, if anything comes up political, they know precisely what to say. They vomit out the left-wing talking points as if it was their own thoughts. I've actually had plenty of conversations with liberals. I had one discussion. It was on social media. It lasted about an hour back and forth, and I know there were third-party people listening to this. It was about the impeachment. I forget which impeachment it was. And everything I said about the impeachment ended up coming true. What the person who was arguing with me about was just repeating what they heard on the news. Just repeating those talking points over and over again. And I'm sure there were third-party people listening to this who were paying attention. And maybe they were kind of swayed by what I was saying. Because, again, if they remember what I said and saw how the election turned out, they're going to go, oh, damn, Mark was right. I think it's Dan Bongino who's always talking about it's a good thing to argue with liberals, especially on social media, because there's always a third party listening in. And that's the person. You're not going to be able to convince the liberal. They're brainwashed. They're just going to spew out the talking points that they got from the media. There's no convincing them of that. In fact, the more you argue with them, the more they double down. But at that third person, that third party that's listening in, that's watching these social media comments, watching these arguments go back and forth, they're the ones who are taking note. They're the ones who are listening. And what you're saying to them or what you're saying to the liberal might actually ring true to the people who are eavesdropping in, so to speak. So remember that when you get into these conversations with people on the left, they're going to do that. They're basically trying to do to you what the media did to them. And it's very frustrating to them when it doesn't sink in. Like, they'll tell you 1,000 times that Trump is a convicted felon. And they get angry at the fact that you're not going, oh, gee whiz, maybe he is a convicted felon. Maybe I shouldn't vote for him. They're getting angry that you're not doing that. They actually think you're stupid. That's why they call you stupid all the time. And they legitimately believe you're stupid. And the reason they believe you're stupid is because you're not buying wholeheartedly the bullshit that was sold to them. You understand what I'm saying? They were sold this propaganda, or the pseudoscience, or whatever it is at the time. They believed it 100%, and they think you're stupid because it's not ringing true in your head. What they don't seem to understand is that you're smarter than them. You already know it's propaganda. Before they opened their fucking mouths, you knew they were going to lie to you. And these sheep, these little minions on the left who tune into The View or CNN or MSNBC, who think they're being informed, who think they're getting the straight story right from the horse's mouth. But they're not. They can't comprehend the fact that they're being conned. I forget who said it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them that they've been fooled. And that's true. With these people, it's easy for the left to fool them. But you trying to convince them that they've been fooled, forget about it. It ain't going to happen. But remember, that third party could be listening in. And that's the one. That's when you got to really lay down the facts. Judge's daughter's getting millions of dollars from Democrat officials in Washington, D.C. The state of New York has no business trying this case. It's not in their jurisdiction. This is a federal election. The FEC's already looked at this and found no case. And even if they did, the most they could slap him with is a misdemeanor, in which he'd probably just pay a fine. They took this to a state level, blew it up to 34 felony counts, and then found him guilty with a jury that came from a district that's 95% Democrat. The real facts of the case tell people what you and me already know, that this was a political persecution, that they had to really jump through rings of fire to convict Trump of felony charges. They're most likely going to lose an appeal. Maybe not at the state level, but if they get up to the Supreme Court, they're going to lose an appeal. They know that. But it's not going to happen before the election. So if they could just keep drilling in people's head that Trump is a convicted felon, maybe they could peel a few votes away from him. But it's not working. I'm going to get more into that in later episodes as soon as we get some more poll numbers out. We've got some poll numbers that are looking pretty good. Trump has raised record. I heard last is like over $100 million. I don't even know where it's at now. I can't even keep track of it. But the money's coming in. The voters are coming in. We're not at a point where we can just sit back and relax and go, Trump's got this in the bag. We still have to keep working. Remember, they're going to throw him in jail. So we're going to have that to deal with. But we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I got for you tonight. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do me a favor, like and share this episode. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified of any future episodes of the Midnight Manifest. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your midnight.
Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine a ever-loving light on me.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.